I am a 17-year-old male teenager who is about to publicly review on YouTube a feminine animated TV show aimed at young girls called My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. What the hell have I gotten myself into? My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's an animated TV show that first aired on national television in 2010. It was distributed by Hasbro and was developed by Lauren Faust and stars Tara Strong, Ashley Ball, Tabitha St. Germain, and Andrea Libman. The show follows 6 colourful ponies that live in the magical land of Equestria, and they have to solve problems and conflicts from day-to-day lives while learning about the magic of friendship. Okay, please remind me, why did I decide to do this again? Now, if you're a returning subscriber and you've gotten used to my taste in film, chances are this is probably the absolute last thing you would have expected me to review. So if you're a returning subscriber, you're probably asking this question. Why the hell am I acknowledging this show even exists, let alone reviewing it? I mean, you could imagine how my mother reacted when she first caught me watching this show for the sake of this review. Yeah, that was a weird conversation. Now don't worry, believe it or not, I do have legit reasons for wanting to review this show, which I will happily explain to you. Now before I say anything and explain why I'm reviewing this show in the first place, I need to really make a fuss about the fact that I don't do TV shows. I've been doing YouTube for about 3 years now, and this is the very first time I've ever reviewed a TV show. And for the reasons I'm about to mention, I finally decided to make an exception. But I don't want you guys to expect this to become a regular thing. This is more than likely going to be one of the only times I'm ever going to review a TV series. So, why did I decide to do this review again? Besides, I just thought the concept of me being an older teenager reviewing a show aimed at young girls, I just thought would make for a funny video. But aside from that, I do have some bigger reasons. Believe it or not, I've actually been wanting to review this show for a lot longer than you may think. Like, way back since I first started doing YouTube. Like, Supersonic Corey kind of long time ago. I had my own personal impressions on the show, and I wanted to express how I felt about it on my YouTube channel way back in like 2013. So if I wanted to review the show from the very beginning, then what took me so long to finally get to it? Well, honestly, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. Being a male teenager who confessed to watching My Little Pony was an image I initially didn't really want for myself. And so while I felt like I had a different opinion on the show and I kind of wanted to share it, that aspect of me not really wanting to expose that part of myself made me want to never, ever encounter anything related to MLP. Ever. It started to create this little conflict I had about the show, and it drove me nuts every single time I accidentally saw something even remotely associated with My Little Pony. And at that point, I knew that having a thumbnail of the show on my YouTube channel, something I visit every single day, would only make things worse. So that would explain why I haven't mentioned it up until now. I had my own personal feelings about it, but at the same time, I also wanted to avoid the show like the plague. Well, clearly that backfired. So why is this the case? Why did I finally decide to review this show? I'll tell you why, because the show is everywhere! My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic appears to be nothing more than just a little kid show aimed at very, very young girls, and yet somehow, a show of that nature is one of the most popular and most commercialized TV shows I have ever seen. Seriously, this show is so popular, it is literally impossible to avoid it. Everywhere I go, there's people wearing My Little Pony shirts and hats. Plush toys are available at the Build-A-Bear workshops. I'm seeing little plastic toys available for sale in the grocery store. Hell, even just a couple weeks ago, I was at Kmart, I was in the movie section, I was browsing for movies, mainly action movies. And so I was browsing for action movies, and then I turn the corner, and the first thing I see is a shelf full of crap loads of My Little Pony DVDs. You're tearing me apart, MLP! And that's just out in public. Avoiding exposure to the show isn't any easier on the internet. In fact, online, I think it's even worse. Memes, parodies, jokes referencing to the show on YouTube, even by some of your favorite YouTubers. Those times when your favorite YouTuber is wearing a My Little Pony t-shirt. Or the ridiculous amount of fan art I've accidentally encountered on Google Images, no matter what I typed in. Memes are everywhere. All those occasions when you're watching a video on YouTube that has absolutely nothing to do with My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, and then you scroll through the comments and see a comment with a My Little Pony profile picture. This show is everywhere. There is no escape. I mean, seriously, I have never, ever seen a TV show get this much exposure. And it's an animated show about ponies. So my question is, why? Why is this show everywhere you go? Why is it so heavily commercialized? I'll tell you why. Because the show is extremely popular. And when I say popular, I don't just mean popular as in lots of kids love it, even though there are probably plenty of kids out there that love the show, but I mean the show is incredibly successful because of this thing known as bronies. Ugh, yeah, I'm going there. Now some of you guys who don't already know may be wondering, Corey, what the hell is a brony? I will happily tell you, and boy are you in for a surprise. The basic concept of a brony is essentially a person outside of the target audience / demographic that watches and enjoys My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And while we all joke about it, it's actually quite accurate. It has been proven that statistically speaking, roughly 80% of the people that watch the show are indeed teenagers or older. And most of these people are male. That is creepy. And considering that this is a show that mostly older guys like, it almost feels like that this show is an elaborate booby trap, where you take one small tiny little peek at the show and then suddenly you're trapped in the land of Equestria surrounded by ponies with absolutely no escape, and the spell is cast, turning anyone into a brony that's unfortunate enough to be unable to resist it. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I can't believe I wrote that. The point is, the show is incredibly successful, and even adults seem to love it. So now that I'm older and I have better critical thinking skills since my last exposure to the show, out of curiosity, I decided to give the show a second chance for the sake of seeing if I can find out what all the fuss is about. Also, the timing for this video is perfect. The release date for My Little Pony the movie to hit cinemas is just around the corner. So now is the perfect time to finally review this show, because making this review right before the movie hit cinemas would make this video that much more relevant. Now before I get into the review of the show itself, I do need to make a few quick disclaimers. Besides, I know I was pretty brutal in reviews for terrible kids movies like Cool Cat Saves the Kids. But despite the weird factor of bronies and everything, I didn't want to just make a mindless video where I am relentlessly hating on this show just for the sake of getting some cheap laughs out of my audience. I genuinely wanted this review to be a fair review. So I actually gave this show a fair shot. I went in rather skeptical, but I did keep an open mind. And to really state how fair I want to be with this show, this review is not just coming from someone who just saw like the first 2 episodes or something, but it's actually coming from someone who has seen literally every single episode. It was what you may call time consuming. But as I already stated, I wanted this review to be as fair as possible. I'm also not just talking about 1 or 2 seasons exclusively. I will be putting every single episode I watch into consideration in this review. And so since I will be talking about any episode from season 1, episode 1 to the most recent episode released so far, that means that this review will contain spoilers. Also, I'm going to do something rather different with this review. Now, while there are probably going to be some bronies watching this video, a lot of you guys watching are probably just my subscribers, and a lot of you guys probably have no idea what the show is even about. And so to help give you a little bit of context, I'm going to go through the season 1 pilot, scene by scene, in the same style as my Cool Cat Saves the Kids review. A lot of people have been telling me that my Cool Cat Saves the Kids review is their favourite video that I have done, so I thought, why not bring something like that back for the beginning of my review for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And then once I finished going through the season 1 pilot, and once I finished going through the show to give you context / making fun of it, then I'll take a step backwards and give my actual thoughts on the show by category, in a much more serious way. Also, while you probably already know by this point because you saw the time code in the video, but the script for this video is 40 pages long, so this is going to be an insanely long video. Maybe even longer than my Cool Cat Saves the Kids review, if that's even possible. So this is going to be a long one, so maybe grab some popcorn and a drink and get ready for the ride as we go through this thing and see if we can find out what all the fuss is about. This is My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So our show begins with the opening of a storybook. We're literally 1 second into the show and we're already using cliches.
Once upon a time.
Rarely have I heard the phrase, once upon a time being used in the front of a kid's movie or show and had it end well. Okay, so opening up a storybook with whimsical music and saying the phrase once upon a time, we're only a few seconds into the show and we've already got 2 cliches. We're off to a great start. So this opening sequence is essentially just giving us some backstory for a little bit of context for the episode we're about to see. The gist of the story is that there are 2 Alicorn princesses. The older princess is named Princess Celestia and she takes care of the sun, while the younger one takes care of the moon. And together they rule the land while also taking care of the sun and the moon. And since the younger princess always has to stay up all night and everyone sleeps through the night, she naturally gets really lonely. And as a result, she grows to become really jealous of Princess Celestia, to the point where she becomes evil and vows to make it eternal night, turning into the villain of the episode, Nightmare Moon. Can I just quickly comment on how flawed this plan is? I mean, to make it eternal night, that's implying that it's never daytime. But if Equestria is a planet, or at the very least a country or continent on a planet, then using basic astronomy, technically the sun is always brightening up one part of the planet. And so even if it's nighttime on one side, it's always daytime on the other. So if she wants to make it eternally nighttime for the entire planet, the only way she's going to do that is by getting rid of the sun completely. And that would mean the Earth would get no heat, which means that it would just turn into a giant ice ball, killing absolutely everyone on it, including her.
Not a great plan.
So as a result, Princess Celestia reluctantly pulls out her secret weapon, the Elements of Harmony. I'll get more into what those are later on in this review. So she uses the Elements of Harmony and banishes her younger sister to the inside of the moon. Yes, you heard that correctly. She is actually banished inside the moon. I would comment on how implausible that is considering the moon is a solid rock, but if I commented on every implausible aspect about this show, we're gonna be here forever. And this review is already long as it is. So after that exposition, we get a glimpse of our main protagonist, Twilight. No, I am not going to make that joke.
My little pony, my little pony.
Oh my god, this song sucks. I hate this intro, it's just painful, it's agonizing. You know what, I'm doing us a favor, we're skipping it. That's better. 7 seasons. 7 seasons of this show, and I still hate that intro. So after that terrible intro, we get a proper introduction to our main protagonist, Twilight Sparkle. And I'm gonna be completely honest, Twilight seriously reminds me of Hermione Granger from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. She's very intelligent, she's a very faithful student, and she absolutely loves studying magic. And she's also quite good at it. Actually, she's a lot like Hermione Granger. She is very good at magic, however, she is so focused on studying that she's rather antisocial, always putting books and studying and magic before her friends. To the point where I would say she has no friends, but that's not entirely true. Twilight does have friends, she just...
Moondancer is having a little get-together in the West Castle courtyard. You wanna come? Oh, sorry, girls. I got a lot of studying to catch up on.
treats them like crap. So she gets home and we meet her assistant, Spike, who is essentially a baby dragon, a pet, a younger brother, and a butler, kind of crammed into one character. And honestly, I never cared for Spike. He's not a bad character or terribly written. He is relatively helpful in some episodes, and there are some episodes that give him quite a bit of depth. But I just never really cared for his character. So she gets home and she's now looking for the book of the Elements of Harmony so she can learn more about them. And eventually, with the help of Spike, she's eventually able to find the book she's looking for. This causes her to go down a rabbit hole when she realizes that the myth about Nightmare Moon being trapped in the moon and everything that I just explained earlier all turns out to be true, and she's planning on escaping on a celebration day that is, ironically, about the celebration of the sun. Twilight tries to warn Princess Celestia, who also happens to be Twilight's teacher, and requests Princess Celestia to take any precautions necessary to prevent Nightmare Moon from escaping. And since Celestia is Twilight's teacher, that means they're actually pretty close, so Twilight tries to warn her by sending her a letter.
We are on the precipice of disaster. Hold on. Press it. Threshold.
The assistant doesn't know how to spell. That's cute.
Brink?
Oh, come on! How do you not know how to spell brink? That is such an easy word to spell!
Great, send it. Now?
No, she means send it in 5 days. Yes, she means now!
I don't know, Twilight. Princess Celestia's a little busy getting ready for the Summer Sun celebration. And it's like the day after tomorrow.
Oh, no! I just realized something. I've got a lot to do before then. What should I do? So they send her the letter by... I'm not even sure how to explain it. Just watch. I got nothing. I have no reaction I can give to that. I mean, I now have so many questions about how the mailing system works in this show. But honestly, after seeing 7 seasons of this, I have just grown to accept it. Trust me, this is not the weirdest thing that happens on the show.
There, it's on its way. But I wouldn't hold your breath.
Oh, I'm not worried, Spike. The princess trusts me completely. In all the years she's been my mentor, she's never once doubted me. See? I knew she would want to take immediate action.
Holy crap, that was quick! I mean, seriously, I timed it. What they did is that they sent the letter, Celestia received it, read it, thought of her response, got paper and quill and ink, and then wrote down her response, and then sent it back to them, all in a matter of 13 seconds! Obi-Wan Kenobi, can you please give me the readings of that on the BS factor?
The reading is off the chart.
Yeah, what he said. So they read Princess Celestia's response. And in a nutshell, it essentially says that Twilight needs to stop reading her books and go to Ponyville to make some friends and ignore any signs of potential Armageddon.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, spoiler alert, she gets kidnapped by the end of the episode. So Twilight is tasked with going to Ponyville to check up on preparations for the celebration, while also making friends in the process. This naturally would take time away for her doing more research about the elements of harmony, what they are, and Twilight is not pleased. So they finally arrive and Twilight makes her first encounter with one of the citizens from the small town.
Hello?
Well, that happened. So Twilight goes over to investigate the food for the celebration, where she encounters the first major character of the show aside from Twilight herself, Applejack. No, I'm not gonna make that joke either. So Applejack behaves as a farmer, and also kind of like a cowgirl, kind of like a character that came from the country. We also get to see how strong she is, because we get to watch her picking apples off a tree. With her legs. Holy crap, those are strong legs! I mean, isn't that kind of like us humans trying to remove every single apple from a tree using nothing but our bare fists? I can't imagine that ending too well. Okay, apples, you're going down. Literally. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Fuck! Show off. Actually, it's kind of funny seeing her pose like that. Why? 2 reasons. For starters, she doesn't know that she's being watched because Twilight hasn't spoken to her yet. So, is she just kind of posing to herself? And secondly, throughout the rest of the show, Applejack has been proven to be a really modest character. So even if she did know she was being watched, I can't imagine her showing off by making a stance like that. So after Applejack showing off, Twilight decides to introduce herself. The response she gets is as follows.
My name is Twilight Sparkle.
Well, how'd it do, Miss Twilight? A pleasure making your acquaintance.
Wow, she really gives a whole new meaning to the word shake. I mean, it's great to have enthusiasm and all, but seriously, Applejack, calm the hell down. I mean, seriously, you could even put the party rock anthem to that.
Shake that.
We here at Sweet Apple Acres sure do like making new friends.
Wow, they only just met and already Applejack is willing to be friends with her. Geez, she's even more accepting than Doug from the movie Up.
I have just met you, and I love you.
Friends? Actually,
I would make a joke about Twilight being really hesitant with the word friend, but honestly, I actually agree with her. I mean, try to apply this kind of situation to real life. So imagine finding someone on the street that you've never met before, and right as you spark a conversation with them, they instantly regard to you as their friend. That would be creepy. And so we find out that Applejack is the one in charge of taking care of the food. And so she decides to give Twilight what you may call a relatively small sample.
Soup's on, every pony!
Guys, you do realize that this stranger is only here just for a small sample of food. I don't think this is an occasion that requires the entire family. Also, holy crap, that's a lot of ponies. I mean, seriously, if there was that many people that I don't know heading straight for me like that, my reaction would be like this.
Run! It's a stampede!
This here's apple fritter, apple bumpkin, red gallop, red delicious, golden delicious, caramel apple, apple strudel, apple tart, baked apples, apple brioche, apple cinnamon crisp.
You know, I could be wrong in saying this, but if I didn't know any better, I would think this family has a thing for apples. Also, don't get too attached to any of these characters we're all being introduced to at once. This is quite literally one of the only times we see any of these characters. I think there's only like one other episode where we see all these characters that Applejack is introducing us to. And even then, that's because that episode was about a family reunion. The only 3 characters she introduces us to that really become recurring characters throughout the entire show is Apple Bloom, Granny Smith, and Big Mac.
I'll have the Big Mac, please.
Great choice.
So after being able to check off the fact that the food is being taken care of, Twilight goes over to investigate the weather, which is where we get introduced to our next major character of the show, Rainbow Dash. Why did I have the urge to replace that with a punching sound effect? And then remix it? This is why I love editing. So Rainbow Dash is a Pegasus pony that's obsessed with sport and overall just obsessed with speed. Rainbow Dash is one of the fastest characters in Equestria, and overall, she just loves speed and she's also quite cocky. Let's just say the word dash is in her name for a reason.
My very own patented Rain Blow Dry. No, don't thank me. You're quite welcome.
What can I say except you're welcome? So Rainbow Dash is able to get rid of the mud by completely soaking Twilight using wet clouds, and then she uses her speed and wind to dry her up. This is very nice of her. Unfortunately, there's a side effect. Yeah, that's not good. I would comment on how terrible Rainbow Dash's laughing is in this scene, but honestly, I've heard worse. So Twilight is criticizing Rainbow Dash for not really getting any of her jobs done, because her duty is to pretty much clear the sky so there's no clouds. Rainbow Dash also points out to Twilight that she really wants to join this group known as the Wonderbolts.
The most talented flyers in all of Equestria? That's them. Please, they'd never accept a Pegasus who can't even keep the sky clear for one measly day.
Hey, I could clear the sky in 10 seconds flat.
Prove it.
You know what? Just for giggles, let's get up my timer and see how long it actually takes.
Loop around and flat. What'd I say? 10 seconds flat. I'd never leave Ponyville hanging.
Okay, to be fair, that is pretty cool.
I can't wait to hang out some more.
I actually love how the word friend slowly becomes a trigger word for Twilight, and she gets more and more annoyed every single time she keeps hearing it throughout the episode. I just think that's funny. Although, to Rainbow Dash's defense, she didn't actually say friend. So they move on to check on the decorations, where they meet the next major character, Rarity.
No. Oh, goodness, no.
Oh my god, are you kidding me? Really? A love at first sight cliche? Are you really doing this? Of all the cliches to use, are you really going to go with that one? Are you serious? Yeah, for those who don't know, Spike has a crush on Rarity throughout pretty much the entire show. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I never liked this subplot. Ever. It's incredibly cliched, it's not funny, it's not interesting, it's not compelling, and did I mention that I'm sick to death of this cliche? Even in Disney movies it's getting old. Also, a baby dragon instantly falling in love with a pony who's who knows how much older than him? That's just unsettling. And this?
Oh, goodness, no.
This just raises so many questions. So Rarity is the kind of character that's incredibly clean and tidy and really good with design, especially in fashion. She's also that kind of character that's obsessed with fashion and just overall looking good, and she also throws a temper tantrum whenever she gets a little bit of mud on her. Yeah, she's that kind of character. Although, to be fair, in one of the most recent episodes, she does throw a temper tantrum about her appearance, but it's honestly one of the few occasions where it was completely justified. But she is still a nice and overall pretty likable character. I mean, when Rarity and Twilight first meet, all Rarity can really focus on is just fixing Twilight's hair.
Oh, my stars, darling! Whatever happened to your coiffure? Oh, you mean my mane? Well, it's a long story.
Bullcrap. You could easily explain what happened to her in literally just one sentence. Don't believe me? Watch this. Rainbow Dash accidentally crashed into me covering ourselves in mud and she messed up my hair when trying to fix it. There. That long story only took me a couple of seconds to explain.
Out of my hair? What about your hair? Wait, where are we going? Help!
I'm being abducted by a pony!
You were telling me where you're from.
I've been sent from Canterlot to...
Huh? Canterlot? We're gonna be the best of friends, you and I.
And again, they've literally only just met, and already Rarity's using the F word. Wait, that sounded wrong. I didn't mean that word, I mean they're already using the word friend. Poor use of wording on my part. Whoa, 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 hold it, pause it right there. Oh, the implications!
Quick, before she decides to dye my coat a new color.
If Twilight doesn't want to see herself in a different color, then nobody tell her about recolored OCs. Next up on the list is music, where we meet yet another major character, Fluttershy. Now, like the previous characters, I would explain what Fluttershy is like, but her name kind of says it all.
A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3.
Hello! Oh my, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to frighten your birds.
Then may I suggest you don't sneak up on them and scream hello at the top of your lungs?
I'm Twilight Sparkle.
Well, this is awkward.
What's your name?
I'm Fluttershy.
I'm sorry, what was that?
My name is Fluttershy.
Didn't quite catch that.
I actually don't know how to react to this. I mean, I could joke about it, but quite frankly, I actually do think this scene's pretty well done. It's cute, and it also does a really great job of really establishing what Fluttershy is like in just a few seconds. She's really talented at composing music and is really, really good with animals. But at the same time, she is very easily frightened and intimidated. But with that knowledge, if I got to see her reaction to a T-800, I'd be laughing pretty damn hard. But in all seriousness though, out of all the character introductions we've had so far, this one is by far my favourite.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
A baby dragon!
Am I the only one who thinks it's funny that she actually frightened her own birds?
Oh, I've never seen a baby dragon before. He's so cute.
Well.
I absolutely love Twilight's facial expression in this scene. Just looking at that face, you know exactly what she's thinking.
Wow, a talking dragon. And what do dragons talk about?
Well, what do you want to know?
Absolutely everything.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That was a genuinely funny scene. So Twilight takes Spike home to a library that she's staying at while she's visiting. And the entire way home, she's listening to Spike telling Fluttershy his entire life story. Which just makes me wonder how long were they walking for and how much detail did he go into in order to get through his entire life. So Twilight finally makes it to the library she's staying at and goes inside, slamming the door in Fluttershy's face. 'Cause friendship is magic.
Rude much? Sorry, Spike. But I have to convince the princess that Nightmare Moon is coming and we're running out of time. I just need to be alone so I can study without a bunch of crazy ponies trying to make friends all the time.
Well, considering the room is probably pitch black for a reason, and the fact you can clearly see decorations in the background, and the fact that it's a common joke in kids shows and movies, yeah, she's surrounded by ponies, isn't she? Called it! But wait a minute, let's stop to think about this. This is the building where Twilight is staying while she's in Ponyville. And so, technically, until she goes back to Canterlot, this is her property. And so, how did everyone else get in there? In fact, let's just replace the word trespassing with the word surprise party and everything will be totally okay. Also, remember how earlier we saw the pony that had the huge freakout at the sight of Twilight? Introducing the final member of our main cast, Pinkie Pie.
Hi, I'm Pinkie Pie, and I threw this party just for you. Were you surprised? Were you? You see, I saw you when you first got here, remember? You were all hello, and I was all, remember? You see, I never saw you before, and if I never saw you before, that meant you're new. Because I know every pony, and I mean every pony in Ponyville. And if you're new...
Oh boy. Yeah. Pinkie Pie is that kind of character. She is the insanely happy, energetic, and optimistic pony that has an obsession with parties. And overall, just loves making everyone around her smile. And in some ways, she actually reminded me of Joy from Inside Out.
And now you have lots and lots of friends.
Stop saying that! You don't just instantly become friends with someone you literally only just met. Plutonic friendships at first sight is almost as bad as love at first sight. Someone you literally only just met claiming to be a friend isn't enduring. It's incredibly creepy. Even Twilight agrees with me.
Aw, she's so happy she's crying.
That wasn't funny. In fact, that just to me looks like that Pinkie Pie is being insensitive and isn't even stopping to think how this may look from Twilight's perspective. I mean, so many people that Twilight has never met before are all coming up to her claiming to be her friend. Has absolutely none of these characters stopped to think that they might be coming off as a little bit invasive? I'm honestly on her side for this. And for a second, I just want to quickly touch upon the background ponies. I honestly think it's incredibly funny how pretty much all of the extras are standing absolutely still. Like, if you saw someone standing that still in a party, you would probably be concerned about them. Hey Johnny, what's up? I just thought I'd... Hey? Hello? Johnny? Hello? Are you alright? Okay, I'm gonna go. And speaking of the background ponies, what is up with this character? I just love how her eyes are completely cross-eyed, like she is not paying any attention to what's going on around her. I just think it's funny. So Twilight spends her time in her room complaining about how she hasn't had any more time to learn more about the elements of harmony.
All the ponies in this town are crazy!
You know, the really funny thing about that statement is that if you just replace the word pony with brony, then that's pretty much how most outsiders would describe the fan base.
Here I thought I'd have time to learn more about the elements of harmony, but silly me, all this ridiculous friend-making has kept me from it.
Question. Twilight is currently in her room, by herself, where it's relatively quiet. Why doesn't she spend some time studying now? Nothing's stopping her. So the characters head over to the town hall to watch the sunrise for the celebration, where Twilight finds out that her predictions are completely true. Princess Celestia has been captured and essentially become the Princess Peach for the story.
She's gone!
Ooh, she's good.
The ruler of your land has literally disappeared without a trace and you're treating it like a game.
Nightmare Moon!
Don't you know who I am?
Ooh, more guessing games. Hokey Smokes. How about Queen Mimi?
Pinkie Pie, you're not helping. Ugh, can someone please shut her up?
Black Snooty, Black Snooty.
Thank you.
You're the Mare in the Moon. Nightmare Moon.
I honestly thought they made it pretty obvious that she was Nightmare Moon. I honestly don't know why they're acting so surprised. So the first episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic ends on a cliffhanger. I did not see that coming. So the second episode begins immediately after the first episode ended, with Nightmare Moon finally making it Eternal Night, and Twilight runs over to the library she was staying at to finally learn more about the elements of harmony. That may have been more useful if you did that earlier instead of sulking in bed, but that's just me. So she's running around the library trying to find a book about the elements of harmony, and upon her search she's joined by the ponies that she met during the first episode. The other ponies, especially Rainbow Dash, come down hard on her, asking her how she knew about Nightmare Moon, and how she knew so much about what was going on. And so she finally decides to tell them about the elements of harmony.
I read all about the prediction of Nightmare Moon. Some mysterious objects called the Elements of Harmony are the only things that can stop her. But I don't know what they are, where to find them. I don't even know what they do.
The Elements of Harmony, a reference guide.
How did you find that?
It was under E.
Wow, Pinkie Pie just used common sense to answer a question. That's new. At least she's now being somewhat useful. Though, to be fair, something as simple as finding a book under a certain letter does make Twilight look kind of stupid, briefly. So Twilight reads the book and she finally learns what she's trying to find out throughout the entire first episode. She finds out that there are 6 elements of harmony, however only 5 of them are actually known, and each element contains a certain characteristic: honesty, kindness, laughter, loyalty, and generosity. And we find out that these MacGuffins can be found in the castle ruins of the Everfree Forest.
Look, I appreciate the offer, but I'd really rather do this on my own.
No can do, Sugar Cube. We sure ain't letting any friend of ours go into that creepy place alone.
I still love how Twilight cringes every time someone says friend. So the main characters go into the Everfree Forest and search for the elements of harmony. Until suddenly... yeah, that happens.
I'm a-coming! Applejack, what do I do?
Fall and die.
Let go.
What? I was kidding!
Let go, and you'll be safe.
Fly, you fools!
Well, that was dark. Actually, no, she's caught by Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy, who give her a slow descent. They continue on with their journey until suddenly they run into a Manticore, an actual known beast from mythology. That's actually pretty cool. So we jump into a brief action scene, until suddenly...
Wait!
they're stopped by Fluttershy of all things.
Oh, you poor, poor little baby.
I know the joke is that we're supposed to be really shocked and surprised that this is just a baby, but honestly, all I can focus on is the fact that about a minute ago we had a shot where we could see that there was clearly no splinter in its paw.
Great continuity!
So they get past the Manticore and they have to face a new, threatening, evil, dangerous challenge. Trees with creepy faces. And that's it. Just trees with creepy faces. That's it. They don't even throw apples like in The Wizard of Oz.
Pinkie, what are you doing? Run!
You're not running either, you hypocrite!
Oh, girls, don't you see?
Wait a minute. Is that bouncy music? Oh boy, is she gonna break into song? Please don't tell me she's about to break into song. Please don't break into...
When I was a little filly and the sun was going down.
Tell me she's not.
The darkness.
So the characters laugh at the trees and move on to the next obstacle, which is a sea creature that is throwing a massive temper tantrum, making a huge unsettled river that's making it pretty much impossible for them to cross. And we find out that his complaining is completely justified because he is suffering the most horrible, terrible, most tragic thing that could possibly happen to him. Did he lose a loved one? Worse. He lost half of his moustache. Really?
That's what all the fuss is about?
Even the ponies agree with me. But honestly, I can't stand this guy. And the best thing I can say about him is the fact that he's not in the episode for very long. He's only here for like a few minutes, and he doesn't appear at any other point in the show except for the 100th episode. But Rarity is feeling rather empathetic for the poor creature, talking about how his mane, hair, and scales are all completely ruined because he has half a moustache. Well, in that case, let's see how she deals with it.
I simply cannot let such a crime against fabulosity go uncorrected.
I didn't know fabulosity was a word, but none of that matters. So, what are you gonna do about it?
Oh!
Rarity, what are you doing? Rarity, no, don't you do it. Don't you dare. Don't you dare do it. Think of the kids. Think of the children. There are kids watching this.
Rarity, what are you...
Oh my god. I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, holy crap. I didn't know I was watching My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, the R-rated cut. I can't believe she actually... Oh wait, false alarm, it's just a tail. That had me worried for a second. Well, thankfully, we get that annoying scene out of the way as we approach the final obstacle, a broken bridge over a ravine. So Rainbow Dash flies over to the other side of the ravine to tie up the bridge so the other characters can cross. Until she's stopped by a mysterious group who call themselves the Shadow Bolts. Yup, they don't look evil at all, and they totally look like characters you should trust. They claim to be an excellent flight group, and they also claim that they really want Rainbow Dash to join, despite the fact she has no knowledge of who they are, or what they do, or what kind of morals they stand by. Not only that, but they also claim that if she wants to join them, she has to neglect her friends. Seriously, Rainbow Dash has absolutely no reason to trust these guys. Well, I'm happy to say that fortunately, Rainbow Dash is not an idiot. She's given the opportunity and she obviously declines with absolutely no hesitation. Okay, the fact that the characters aren't that stupid in the show, that's a good sign. So they finally make it to the castle ruins and they make it inside. And inside, they find a pony that's been chained up and held hostage. Without thinking, Twilight uses her magic in order to remove the chains. This obviously makes her very happy, so with gratitude, she stands up, looks at Twilight, smiles, and says, "Thank you, Twilight, but our princess is in another castle." Okay, that doesn't happen. As funny as that would be. What actually ends up happening is that as they end up inside, they find the elements of harmony. So as they found the elements of harmony, they think they have won, but considering we haven't had a big climactic showdown with Nightmare Moon yet, and considering we still have 9 minutes left of this episode, yeah, it's not gonna be that easy, is it? So Nightmare Moon shows up and teleports herself, Twilight, and the elements of harmony to another castle. And you thought I was joking about another castle. But despite all Twilight's attempts to activate the elements of harmony, Nightmare Moon manages to overcome our hero by shattering the elements of harmony.
Now you will never see your princess or your son. The night will last forever!
Note to the villain of this episode. If you appear to have overcome the hero, and you think you've succeeded, note to self, don't brag about how you believe you have succeeded, because it's a pretty major cliche in kids shows and movies, where it's the moment where the villain says they've succeeded, when that ends up biting them in the bum. Having that said, I'm expecting the tables to turn on you right about now.
You think you can destroy the elements of harmony just like that? Well, you're wrong, because the spirits of the elements of harmony are right here!
I'd hate to say I told you so. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'd love to say it. I told you so! So she makes this big epic speech talking about how she's figured out how the elements of harmony work. Basically, as I stated earlier, the elements of harmony each have their own individual characteristics, and the challenges that each of the characters face throughout this episode, each character showed to hold an individual characteristic of the elements of harmony. For example, Rainbow Dash putting her friends before her own personal desires represented the element of loyalty, Applejack was the element of honesty by pretty much proving to Twilight that she was going to be fine when she was in doubt, and this applies to pretty much everyone. It's also confirmed that the potential and the power of the elements of harmony aren't fully realized and don't come to full fruition until 5 ponies each show an individual characteristic of each of the elements of harmony. Then, and only then, is when the elements of harmony will unite and essentially create what is known as the spark. And the spark finally ignites when Twilight confesses to the other 5 ponies that they are...
You all are my friends!
Great. Now even Twilight's using the F word. I have got to stop calling it that. You know what? Screw it. Let's just accept it, don't ask any questions, it happens, let's just move on. So since they were able to create the spark by uniting the other 5 elements of harmony, this allows Twilight to reveal the 6th and final element.
The element of
Friendship!
magic.
Oh. Well, not quite what I had in mind, but yeah, magic works too.
The power of Twilight compels you. The power of Twilight compels you.
So, with Nightmare Moon gone, the ponies are finally able to reflect on what the hell just happened.
Why, Rarity, it's so lovely.
I know. I'll never part with it again.
I guess that the elements of harmony can not only protect Equestria, but they also have the magical ability of restoring missing tails. Who knew? And after all this happens, Princess Celestia finally appears from thin air. So Princess Celestia then explains to Twilight that she actually had full faith in Twilight the entire time. And it turns out that the only reason why Princess Celestia made a fuss about Twilight making friends is because while she knew Twilight was going to be able to find out about how to get to the elements of harmony, she also knew that Twilight had absolutely no chance on activating them unless she made friends first. We also find out that Nightmare Moon is also Princess Celestia's younger sister, Luna. And this would be a pretty surprising twist. That is, if you didn't actually spoil the twist literally in the first 10 seconds of the first episode. So Princess Celestia is finally able to reason with her younger sister, and she's able to bring her to the light side.
Will you accept my friendship?
I'm so sorry. I missed you so much, big sister.
Well,
That was easy.
So everyone is celebrating, but Twilight is dreading the idea of returning to Canterlot because that means leaving her newfound friends. Celestia takes this to account and allows it so Twilight's new home is now Ponyville, and now she has a new task of learning about friendship. She has to study friendship and record to Princess Celestia about anything she learns. This generates the main structure for a lot of the episodes in the first couple of seasons of the show. So that's My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Well, the first 2 episodes at least. I'm now going to stop the whole scene-by-scene joking business, and I'm now going to take a step back and look at the show as a whole, and throughout the rest of this review I'm going to provide my honest and more serious opinions on the show. So, how is My Little Pony Friendship is Magic? Well, keep in mind that I went into the show relatively skeptical. I went into the show expecting to say that it was okay at best. I did keep an open mind, but I did go into the review just expecting to say that it's okay. But after giving it a fair chance and seeing the entire show, I'm going to be completely honest, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but honestly, I love this show! Oh, wow, great. Real mature, guys! But yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be saying that about a kid's show about ponies. But My Little Pony Friendship is Magic surprised the hell out of me. This show is fantastic. It is so much better and so much more mature than I ever anticipated. And a lot of you guys are probably asking yourself this question in your head, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. I am a brony.
Sorry, you're a what?
Yeah, you heard me. A brony. I am a brony. And proud.
I honestly don't know whether you're joking or whether you're serious, but either way, I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You are publicly calling yourself a brony, an older person who is about to give a positive review for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Okay, right. Yeah, what the hell is wrong with you?
Ugh, come on. It's not like this is the first time I've openly said I like something that was made for kids. Hell, you like Disney and Pixar movies, and those movies are made for kids.
Whoa. Disney and Pixar are different. Their movies are, good. Unless it involves, cars and planes. But apart from that, they're usually good.
So is MLP!
No. There is no way, no chance in hell, that a feminine kids show about ponies making friends would ever be considered good. Ever.
Right. And clearly you're the expert on these things based on how much of the show you've actually seen.
Really, Corey? Are you hearing yourself right now? You're actually saying that My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is good.
Let me explain. Yes, I'm a brony and I have absolutely no shame in admitting it. I have no reason to, because being embarrassed to like the show would be implying that there's something wrong with liking it. And there isn't. Why is that? Well, I'll give you one simple answer. It's actually a really good show. Now, a lot of you guys are probably sharing Aaron's expression. A lot of you guys are probably going, Corey, what the hell are you thinking? So allow me to go into thorough detail into the show and explain exactly why I personally think it's a good show, and why I think it's as popular as it is. One thing I really like about the show is the fact that it's not afraid to go into mature places. Yes, this is a very whimsical, innocent show aimed for little girls, but at times the show handles some really heavy subjects. One example, and this is one of the most infamous episodes, is the episode Tanks for the Memories. This particular episode deals with the idea of losing someone you love. In this particular episode, Rainbow Dash comes to realize that her pet tortoise Tank has to hibernate for the winter. But Rainbow Dash decides that she doesn't want that to happen, and she spends the entire episode going through the 5 stages of grief. And the episode ends with Rainbow Dash finally breaking down, bawling into tears when she realizes that she has to let her pet go. And I really love how easily this can be applied to the real world, stating that there will be times in your life when you're going to lose someone you love and it's going to hurt, no matter how much you think you're prepared for it. And it's true. As someone who lost a loved one shortly before seeing this episode, I can say from personal experience that losing someone you love hurts a lot. And I love how an episode of My Little Pony of all things had the guts to explain that this kind of thing is inevitable. There are also some episodes that explore the idea about how you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and you should not criticize something without even giving it a proper chance. I absolutely love the irony in that last one. And having all of that aside, I'm just going to ignore episodes like Ponyville Confidential. You know, the episode where children were being blackmailed into doing something that caused them to suffer an extreme discrimination against the entire town, including their friends and family. I'm dead serious, that's an actual episode of the show. And in terms of the episodes themselves, there usually tend to be 2 types of episodes: adventure episodes and slice of life episodes. And on the rare occasion you might get an episode that's kind of a hybrid of the two. Going into the show, I really just expected very low stakes slice of life kind of stuff, so the adventure episodes really caught me off guard. Adventure episodes tend to be a lot more exciting, and sometimes they have a bit more intensity to them. Some of these adventure episodes can have some rather fun, entertaining concepts, like climbing a mountain to face off a dragon, or an episode where Twilight is warned by her future self, telling her that there is a terrible disaster coming in just about 1 week. But she's sent back into the future before she has time to explain what the disaster is, and present Twilight spends the entire episode panicking trying to figure it out. I won't spoil the ending for you, but let's just say that I found the ending to that particular episode really clever. But by far, the biggest and most intense adventure episodes are without a doubt the 2-parters. These are the episodes where there's 2 episodes telling one larger story. The episode that I just made fun of and went through scene by scene is an example of one of these 2-parters. Now, to be fair, I think the one that we went through is one of the weaker ones. I only picked it because it was the very first episode of the show. But I wasn't lying when I said that the cliffhanger really caught me off guard the first time I saw it. But there are better ones out there. One thing I really appreciate about them is the fact that at times they really can generate a real genuine sense of urgency. I think some of my favourite examples of 2-parter episodes of the show are A Canterlot Wedding, The Cutie Map, and Twilight's Kingdom. That title sounds so lame! I mean, what the hell could be in an episode like Twilight's Kingdom that could ever possibly be— I feel it deeper now, it's just beneath the skin. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I hate what has become, the nightmare's just begun. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I feel like a monster. I feel like a monster. Wow. And people say this show's just for little girls. These 2-parter episodes aren't perfect though, and they do have some pretty serious problems. For example, one thing I constantly kept pointing out throughout the first 2 episodes is the fact that these episodes tend to be a lot more cliched than the regular slice of life episodes, and a lot of them have a real serious Deus Ex Machina ending.
My power is useless now. I don't have the strength to repel them.
My love will give you strength.
That
That's the power of love. You don't need money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden and it's cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life. That's the power of love.
Now, the slice of life episodes are nowhere near as over the top, but they're still worth talking about. One of the first things I do have to say is that they far outnumber the adventure episodes. And I honestly do think it should have been a little bit more even, and I kind of would have liked to see an equal number of adventure episodes and slice of life episodes. But that's not to say that the slice of life episodes are bad. In fact, they sometimes can be some of the best episodes in the show. Hell, my favorite episode of the show is indeed a slice of life episode. One thing I really appreciate about the show, including the slice of life episodes, is the fact they generate a lot of genuine conflict. And with slice of life episodes in particular, they usually don't involve any creatures or monsters, or if there's anything like that, they only appear in like one scene. In fact, a lot of the conflict generated within the slice of life episodes really just come down to character interaction. A lot of the episodes in the slice of life episodes are very dialogue driven, which is kind of incredible knowing the nature of the show's target audience. A lot of the conflict in the show really just comes generated from little arguments and little disagreements that characters end up in, and they spend the entire episode trying to resolve this problem. For example, there's one episode early on called Applebuck Season, something that a lot of bronies claim to be one of the first great episodes of the show, and Applejack pretty much overworks herself trying to give herself a job that she's incapable of doing alone. But she spends the entire episode denying that fact, and she works herself so hard that it starts to physically and mentally damage herself along with those around her. And the large majority of the episode involves Twilight seeing how much work that Applejack is doing, and Twilight desperately trying to convince Applejack to let them help her. So the conflict in the episode is generated between the relationship between Twilight and Applejack. These 6 main characters have very, very different personalities, and so as a result, naturally these personalities clash. A lot. They are still really great friends, but this doesn't stop them from bickering at time to time. Which leads to another thing. When there are episodes where the conflict relies on the relationship between 2 characters or more characters, the argument is very rarely one-sided. They don't just have a very black and white, this character's right and this character is wrong. But the show usually goes out of its way to make sure you can see both sides of the argument. So even though you may agree with one character more than another, you can still at the very least see where both characters are coming from. So the conflict isn't so black and white like you would expect to see in a lot of other kids shows of this nature. Also, one thing I can't appreciate about this show enough is the fact that despite what the show may look like from the outside, it does not pander to the female demographic. Yes, from the outside looking in, the show is very feminine. The amount of female characters in the show vastly outnumber the male characters in the show. Yes, the show is about ponies, and the marketing really emphasizes on pink and rainbows and plastic toys and all that kind of stuff that girls tend to like. So since it's marketed as a girl show, that would explain why so many people roll their eyes in shock when they find out that a lot of guys watch it as well. But the show itself doesn't pander to the female audience anywhere near as much as you may think from the marketing. Most of the episodes are really just focused on telling its story, rather than worrying about what genders are watching the show. Don't let the marketing of the show fool you. This show is nowhere near as feminine or girly as it may seem from the marketing. And I haven't seen much of the previous generations of My Little Pony, but they seem like they do pander to the female demographic. And so, since this show doesn't do that, all I can say is, thank you! And so as a result, some episodes have some really cool concepts. Like the one I mentioned earlier about Twilight being visited by herself from the future. Which, if you take that kind of concept out of the My Little Pony context, that sounds more like something you would see in a boys movie. Like something you'd expect to see in a sci-fi about time travel. Which is an example of why I don't really think the writers really care of whether or not it's males or females that are watching the show. They just want to tell a good story, so they'll just focus on telling the story and they'll just let whoever wants to watch it. And then there are also other episodes that can be extremely relatable, which leads to episodes like Read It and Weep, which is by far my favorite episode of the show. And the reason why is because Rainbow Dash criticizes and makes fun of the concept of reading books and refuses to try it, and she says that it's dumb and she'll never get into it. But since she's stuck in a hospital, she eventually ends up reading the book anyway out of desperation and becomes extremely embarrassed to admit that she absolutely loves reading. I absolutely loved that episode, and I think one of the main reasons why is simply because it probably mirrored the process that a lot of bronies went through when they first discovered the show. Another example of a relatable episode is in Season 2, Episode 3, Lesson 0. If you've ever had an assignment and you've really freaked out and panicked about the deadline, and you were so obsessed with not missing the deadline that you almost physically harm yourself as a result, then you are going to at least somewhat relate to this episode. Because that's exactly what happens to Twilight. She receives an assignment because she apparently has to send a letter to Princess Celestia every single week. And she realizes that the deadline for her next letter is almost up and she hasn't learned any lessons about friendship. And as the episode progresses and the deadline gets closer and closer and closer, she eventually gets so stressed out about missing the deadline that she literally goes insane.
Hi, girls.
That is terrifying! But I'm not gonna lie and say that it isn't humorous watching Twilight having a mental breakdown. Actually, there's quite a few mental breakdowns throughout the show. Another thing that really surprised me about this show is its sense of humor. To my surprise, this is actually a genuinely funny show. Now, yes, the show does have some comic relief and slapstick moments, but keep in mind, it's a cartoon, so that kind of thing is expected. But there's also a lot of more mature jokes, including little jokes and innuendos that will go way over kids' heads.
I'm just wondering if it's okay if I hold you down against your will for a little bit?
That clip sounds a lot more crude if you listen to that with absolutely no context. And outside of little innuendos and jokes and references, there's another great source of humor, and that's the relationship between characters. Not only does this generate a lot of the conflict that I mentioned earlier, but also sometimes when you have a good combination of characters, it allows them to have a really good banter, and the way they bounce off each other can lead to some of the funniest moments in the entire show.
So now that you know the elements of a good cheer, let's hear one.
Yay.
Ugh, you're gonna cheer for me like that? Louder.
Yay.
Louder!
Yay.
Louder!
Yay. Too loud.
I am a lady, and I wish to be addressed as such, so you may call me Miss, or Rarity, or Miss Rarity.
Enough! You're whining! It hurts!
Whining? I am not whining. I am complaining. Do you want to hear whining? This is whining.
Oh, this harness is too tight.
Nervous? Don't be ridiculous. You're only facing a large crowd of ponies who will be watching your every move and silently judging you.
And then there's the other kind of jokes in the show. The ones that caught me off guard the most. What do I mean? I mean jokes like this.
I guess you had to be there.
I do need to be there.
But you weren't, and it's already happened. Ooh, are you suggesting
Time travel?
What the hell? Your eyes aren't deceiving you. That is a My Little Pony character dressed up as Marty McFly from Back to the Future. Yeah, the show has pop culture references, and usually I see it as a bad thing, but honestly, I love spotting them. They happen very, very infrequently, and it always manages to get a laugh out of me whenever I spot one. This show has referenced stuff like Game of Thrones, Back to the Future, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Mad Max Fury Road, The Big Lebowski, Metal Gear Solid, Doctor Who, The Shining. Hell, even Mission Impossible gets a reference at one point. So yeah, this is a genuinely funny show, and a lot of it comes down to some really, really funny references, some adult jokes that will go way over kids' heads, and overall just really snappy dialogue and really funny banter between characters. And speaking of the characters, well, let's talk about them. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail of what these characters are like personality-wise, because that was kind of the whole point of the scene-by-scene stuff that I did earlier. The first thing I have to say is that the main characters of the show are essentially a group that is commonly referred to by the Grony community as the Main Six. And yes, that pun was intentional. Seriously, that's what people call them. At first I rolled my eyes at this pun, but I've learned to just roll with it. And I'm going to be completely honest, I think the Main Six is the primary reason why the show is as popular as it is. Each member of the Main Six are all unique and they all stand out from the crowd. And I mean that in terms of their design, their personality, and their voices. Each character has a very, very distinct voice and personality, to the point where if you just see a black screen and you hear them talking, you can instantly tell just by the voices who it is that's talking. Which is one of the reasons I was completely blown away when I realized that characters like Applejack and Rainbow Dash were both voiced by the same person, Ashley Ball. Seriously, these characters had such different voices to them that I had no idea that they were both played by Ashley Ball until I looked it up on the internet. And the same applies for Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy, polar opposite characters, and they were both voiced by Andrea Lipman. But after watching the entire show, the voices have become so absorbed into my head by this point that I can't imagine anyone else in the roles. Some people may find the voice acting annoying, and fair enough, to each their own, it really comes down to personal preference, but I thought the voice acting was great. And each character in their own way are all very likable. Now I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes and I'm going to try and be as brief as possible and give my brief thoughts on how I feel about each member of the main six individually. Starting with Applejack. Applejack, in my opinion, is a really great character, even though I would only rank her around roughly in the middle if I was to rank the members of the main six. I don't think she's quite as interesting as some of the other characters, but she is still a very likable character. One thing I like about Applejack is the fact that she kind of behaves like a voice of reason. She is by far the most mature character in the main six. In fact, the creators of the show could come out and say that out of the main six, Applejack was the oldest, and I would probably believe them. She's usually able to remain level-headed, and she's also able to remain calm in negative and stressful situations. Something that other members of the main six prove to be incapable of doing. She has a very clear conscience, and she usually has a really strong grasp on what's right. Also, out of all the main six, Applejack is by far the character with the most responsibilities. The show's established that her parents have passed away, so she lives on her farm and her legal guardian is essentially an old granny. So as a result, she's really hardworking and she's the one who tries to take responsibility of looking out for the farm, while also trying to help raise her younger sister. But at the same time, she is not perfect. She is a genuinely flawed character. Since she has so many responsibilities, she's very, very prideful of those responsibilities, and as a result, she can be incredibly stubborn. And she's also the element of honesty, so she's a very honest character, but at the same time, she doesn't exactly have a filter. There's an episode when she's asked to give her honest opinion, but she has no filter, and so she pretty much says it exactly as it comes to her head. And when her honest opinion is something the other characters may not want to hear, it doesn't end well. Next up is Rarity, and right off the bat, I'm just gonna say that Rarity is by far my least favorite character of the main six. I am just really not a fan of the clothes fashion loving archetype. In the first season, she's absolutely obsessed with clothes and fashion, and 7 seasons later, absolutely nothing about that has changed. In fact, if anything, she's gotten worse. And above that, I also think that out of the main six, I think Rarity's the one who annoys me the most frequently. But that's not to say she's a terrible character. Apparently Hasbro demanded to Lauren Faust that they needed at least one character that was obsessed with clothes and fashion to meet some sort of demographic checklist. And I really like how Lauren Faust was able to find a loophole to make it so she's just using an archetype instead of becoming a full-on stereotype. And the main thing that she did to do this is by having it so it's essentially an occupation. The reason why she has such a sharp eye out for fashion and what looks good and what doesn't is because it's her job. She has a passion and dream of doing this for a living, and the show involves her trying to pursue that dream. So in a lot of situations, she is actively getting paid to make these clothes as her job. It just turns out that her job is something that she absolutely loves to do. And you know what? That's really, really cool. And just like Applejack, Rarity too does have some genuine flaws. She is the element of generosity, but at the same time, there are times when her obsession with fashion does get the better of her and she becomes selfish. And there are times when she puts herself before her friends. But there are some episodes when her flaws do go a little bit too far, which is why episodes like Sonic Rainboom is where she got on my nerves the most. Next up is Pinkie Pie. Now, Pinkie Pie and I actually have quite a few similarities. We are both optimists, we are both joyful, and we both see the glass as half full. I'm a very joyful, optimistic person, very much like Pinkie Pie, only not as eccentric as Pinkie Pie. And as a result, a lot of people may think that Pinkie Pie is my favourite of the main six. But really, she honestly isn't. In fact, I think she's my second least favourite member of the main six, right behind Rarity. But she is the character I relate to the most, so I'll give her that. There's just a really upbeat, joyful sense to her character. She's far from being my favourite, but I can definitely see why other bronies would highly consider her to be their favourite. And she also is a flawed character. Pinkie is so obsessed with having fun and joking around that there are times when she doesn't know when to shut up and take things seriously. And at times this would be genuinely annoying if it wasn't for the fact that the characters actually acknowledge it and it's an actual flaw. The main reason why I really wouldn't consider her my favourite is mainly just because she is very loud and very over the top, and at times she is a little bit annoying. And did I mention she's loud?
She heard me.
Well, my ears are bleeding, so most likely. And then there's Fluttershy. And yeah, I'm just gonna say it. This character is adorable. She is a very timid and easily frightened character, which does play up as a main flaw for her. But in general, she's also just a very sweet and a very, very innocent character. In fact, I think she probably feels like the most innocent character in the main six. She's also the most vulnerable character in the show. In a lot of episodes, she's either a pushover or she is so kind that people take advantage of her. She's also, in some ways, the most cowardly character in the show. When the rest of the main six are going to fight this evil beast or entity, Fluttershy is usually the first character who wants to turn around and run the other way. And then, there's Rainbow Dash. And yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Rainbow Dash is by far my favourite character in the entire show. Seriously, I love this character. The first thing that I instantly liked about this character is that out of all the characters in the entire show, she is the one who most effectively breaks out of the mold of the type of characters you would expect to see in a show of this nature. She acts like a tomboy and she is by far the fastest character in Equestria. In fact, she's one of, if not the only characters in the entire show to ever break the sound barrier, or perform the sonic rainboom as they call it. And also, I'm just really associated with high speed. It's one of the reasons why I love action films. One of my favourite movies is literally called Speed, and car chases or foot chases are some of my favourite types of action scenes in action films. Well, maybe that in hand-to-hand combat. And so her high-speed nature was something that really associated with me. She is a female, but nothing about that affects her character in the least. In fact, there are plenty of occasions where people genuinely thought Rainbow Dash was a guy. And once again, she has some really glaring character flaws. The most notable is the fact that she has a huge ego. She's very confident and very skilled at the stuff that she does, and a lot of people praise her for it, but she really likes to milk it in. And there are also times when she can be the most arrogant of all the other characters. But that does not stop me from loving this character. And finally, last but not least, we have the main protagonist of the show, Twilight, who is by far the most developed character in the entire show. And she is once again an excellent character. And I think one of the main reasons why she's an excellent character is because of her arc in leadership. Twilight has had a massive character arc that's lasted over the span of the entire show. At the very start of the show, Twilight is an incredibly talented but also very antisocial unicorn with potential. She's very good at magic, but she also shuts everyone around her out. Well, everyone excluding her teacher, Princess Celestia. And so Princess Celestia finally decides to take it upon her to try and improve Twilight's social skills. And so she sets Twilight with the task of making some friends, which is what she ends up doing throughout the first 2 episodes. However, she's very inexperienced with friendship, so that's why she spends the entire first few seasons of the show studying it. Analysing how to be a good friend, how to maintain a healthy relationship with your friends, and she learns more and more and more as the first couple of seasons progress. As a result, throughout the first couple of seasons, she is socially awkward, but you can tell that she is trying. By the time we get to season 3, she has improved a lot and overall a very different character to how she was at the start of the show. And as a result, she's forced to take the next step in her training when she becomes an Alicorn, which actually split the entire Brony community right in half. Bronies seem to absolutely love or hate this plot point. I personally loved it because I feel like that this was the next step in her character arc. Because once she becomes an Alicorn princess, I started to think, hey, this is great. Now she can learn about how to become an effective leader. And she does. She's given more power, given an official princess role. And you can tell throughout the last few seasons, since Twilight knows a ton about friendship, you can tell Princess Celestia is really slowly and gradually trying to teach Twilight about how to be an effective ruler. And so she's gone from being a small, insignificant, talented unicorn with potential to being one of the 4 main rulers of the land. By this point, she has learned a lot and she's changed a lot. But this is a character arc that spans over the entire show, and it moves at a very gradual progression. This is great storytelling, and it's one of my favorite aspects of the show. And this applies to a lot of the other characters from the show. Each and every single character have their own individual talents and goals, and they all have their passions and wishes that they wish to make in life. And as the show progresses, each of these characters are very slowly working towards that goal. But since Twilight's the protagonist, it's just her one that's the most prominent. And even all that aside, I still found Twilight to be a likable and overall pretty entertaining character. For those who are really curious, I think this is how I would rank the main 6 from the show. So yeah, the show has really well developed characters. Something I did not expect to say in a review for a show called My Little Pony. Moving on from characters, I want to talk about some more simple subjects. Let's talk a little bit about the animation. And right off the bat, I'm just going to say that yes, I am a fan of this show's art direction. I really do like the design of the actual characters themselves, and I do like the overall design choice to make them so they don't look like, well, actual ponies. Overall, the show just has a very unique and different style that I haven't seen in any other kids cartoon. I really like how it has its own unique style, and it has its own identity. And even if you put it with other My Little Pony shows, this one still stands out from the crowd. Mainly because it's visually unique. And when I started watching the show, one thing that really astounded me was how utterly gorgeous the animation is. And the animation only improves as the show goes on, and I liked it right off the bat. Visually, the show is just fine if you're watching it in standard definition. However, I've noticed that the show is extremely pleasing to the eyes if you watch it in 720p. So, if you decide to watch this show, watch it in HD. Admittedly, initially, the fact that the show was about ponies did make me feel rather uncomfortable. However, I was able to quickly shrug it off, and it wasn't long until I got used to it. Now it no longer bothers me. And despite the fact that every single character has a very similar shape and overall very similar base, however, they are all very visually unique, and even the characters in the background stand out. The show has a rather simplistic design, but it's also a very bright and colourful show, and the colours are very saturated. And the colour of the show really pops and it's very vibrant. And watching the show in high definition, the animation is very sharp and very crisp, and the characters move very fluidly. Overall, I can see a ton of effort put into the animation of the show, and as a result, I think it's a great looking show. And the animation only gets better as the show goes on, with more detail put into the backgrounds and overall better lighting effects. If I had anything to complain about animation-wise, I would like to state that there are a few occasional continuity errors. But they're small, insignificant, and they're only small minor things that I only noticed upon repeated viewings. And then there's the music. And I want to start with the opening theme. And I know that I said I'm a brony and all, but I still absolutely hate the intro of the show. Yes, I'm a brony and I still think the intro sucks. Let's just move on. Okay, but what about the rest of the music in the show? Well, how I feel about the music in the show really just comes down to the individual songs. I don't really pay attention to the background music, so I'm just going to more pay attention to the bigger musical numbers. So I'm just going to go down to some of the songs individually. And yeah, there are definitely some huge misses, and some of the songs I think are borderline terrible. I don't think I know anybody who likes the song that plays at the end of the Showstoppers episode in Season 1. But apart from the main theme and some other occasional terrible songs, there are also a lot of songs in the show that I actually really like. Sometimes I may like them for the lyrics, and sometimes I may like them just because I really like the notes that are reached, and maybe it's just really pleasing to the ears. But a lot of the times, I like the songs because they're just insanely catchy. A lot of the songs in the show are very memorable, and they're catchy enough to actually have gotten stuck in my head several times. And they're songs that I find myself constantly going back to re-listen to. Now, no, not every song in the show is that great, but there are a small handful of songs that I do find really catchy. Some of my favourite songs in the show include Winter Wrap-Up, Smile, This Day Aria, The Magic Inside, and most recently Flawless, which has been stuck in my head ever since I first heard it when I saw the episode recently after it came out. I don't think I will ever get that song out of my head. So yeah, the show even has a pretty decent soundtrack. And that's basically my overall feelings on the show. I could have gone into more detail, but I didn't really want to because this video is already insanely long. But those are my thoughts on the show as a whole, and that's why I think that this show is overall a good show. But among the show itself, another thing that I want to discuss in this video is the fandom. I was really curious about why this show was so popular, and I realized that one way of being able to figure that out was not only by watching the show itself, but actually exposing myself to the Brony community. As a result, this video has been in preparation for literally about 5 months. Production for this video began way back in April this year, and currently it is now October. Seriously, I've been spending that long on this video. I spent about a month watching the show on Netflix, but I also was doing a ton of research on the Brony community. And when you first hear the concept of a Brony, yeah, it's weird, and in some ways some people may find it kind of creepy. But when I actually dug deeper and did some research on what Bronies are actually like, I've quickly realized that the Brony community is quite possibly one of the best fan bases I have ever seen in my entire life. And no, I promise you I have not gone insane. Considering the weird nature of an older guy like in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, that has spawned a lot of memes and rumors and overall just borderline stereotypes about the Brony community. And some of the stereotypes I've heard Brony's been given are disgusting. I mean, so bad it's on the levels where I don't even feel comfortable talking about it on my channel. And it's really quite horrific to know that some people genuinely believe that all Bronies are like this. Bronies are usually given the stereotype that they are really just grown men that live in their mother's basement and they just watch the show in the basement all day without any jobs. And while there may be 1 or 2 Bronies like that, it's definitely not the majority. In fact, I've actually come to learn that Bronies are basically the exact opposite. A lot of Bronies claim that they are not into the disgusting stuff that Bronies are stereotyped of being, and they say that they only like it because they genuinely think it's a well-made show. Most likely for at least one of the reasons that I've mentioned in this video. Not only that, but Bronies are also some of the friendliest, kindest, most creative, and most talented people I have ever seen. These people are also very, very inclusive. It's a very, very friendly community. Although I can't say I should be too surprised considering that it's a fan base about a show that's literally about the importance of friendship. Many Bronies actually watch the show and they take the lessons taught by the show and they apply it to everyday life. And there's also a lot of Bronies that's spoken about how they dropped bad habits and picked up positive habits out of inspiration for the show, and discussing how the show has had a very positive influence on their lives. And not only are there a lot of really great, kind people in this fandom, but they're also extremely creative and talented. Bronies absolutely love making their own content, and yes, I always did get a little bit annoyed when I accidentally ran into fan art, so I still stand by what I said when I say that it is oversaturated. But when I've actively gone looking for stuff that other Bronies have created, I'm usually quite impressed by what I see. Bronies also actually seem to find a certain field that they like, and inspired by the show, they actually get creative and they grow an entire talent in that field. To the point where they get so good in that particular field, they're able to do it for a living and earn money off it. And I mean a wide variety of stuff. For example, like graphic design. Bronies have gotten inspired to create their own artwork and they've gotten into graphic design. And yeah, there is really, really terrible fan art out there, but a lot of the fan art I've been exposed to is actually really, really good. Like, it's the kind of stuff that I look at and I instantly wish that I could draw as well as they could. And people have gotten so good at drawing that they actually create digital artworks for a living and they do it as a job. And they were able to do that because they have a passion that they found out of inspiration for the show. And it's not just digital artwork. There are also a ton of fan-made songs, whether they are remixes or covers of songs from the show, some of which have really thoroughly impressed me. Sometimes I've even found songs that I like the covers better than the original song, and there are some people that have been able to create original songs. 2 of my personal favorites is Join the Herd by Forest Rain, which has been stuck in my head for ages.
What is this weird show? It's like the only thing you know. You talk about it every day. You know this is child's play. Your path ahead is blurred, told to go join in on the herd. You know this show's for younger crowds. How can you say you're proud? You're think, Brony, think everything in here is pink.
And Discord, created by Eurobeat Brony. I don't know how you say it. This guy. another fan-made song that I find really catchy. It's also very popular. And eventually it got a remix by The Living Tombstone that got so popular that it's got even more views on YouTube than the original. Like, by a landslide. I do like the original slightly more, but I also really enjoy The Living Tombstone's remix.
Discord, I'm howling at the moon and sleeping in the middle of a summer afternoon. Discord, whatever did we do to make you take no other way? Discord, are we a prey alone, or are we just a stepping stone for taking back the throne? Discord, we won't take it anymore, so take a tyranny away.
There are also analyst bronies, channels that I actually watch like Brawny Buck or Ty and Dagger or Lightning Bliss. There's also fan animations and parodies, some of the funniest parodies I have ever seen in my life. Hell, even some of the fan fiction is really good. Now, I'm not gonna act like I've read a lot yet, but there are a few stories that I have read. One example of a really popular fan fiction, and probably one of the most popular out there, is Fallout Equestria, a story that combines the post-apocalyptic world of the Fallout video game series with Equestria of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Yes, that actually exists. And a lot of people say that it's actually apparently a really great story, and a lot of people say that it's a fantastic read. Now, this isn't a great example for me to give though, because I personally haven't read Fallout Equestria yet. I plan to, I just haven't gotten around to it quite yet. Why? Well, it's quite simple. The reason why I haven't read Fallout Equestria yet is just simply because Fallout Equestria is what you may call, to put this lightly, a long read. And I mean a really long read. I mean, Fallout Equestria is, I kid you not, 620,295 words. Now, right off the bat, that might not sound like that it's really that bad. So let me put it into context for you. Let's take the longest Harry Potter book in the series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. A book that is this thick, may I remind you. So let's take a book that's this thick. Now this book is 257,045 words long. So to put that into context, let's take this book and let's duplicate the length. So we have 2 Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix books combined. Fallout Equestria is longer than that. Yeah, that's why I haven't read it yet. Dear God, I wonder how long that took to write. So I decided to look at some other popular but relatively smaller stories instead. And one very popular story that I have read is a fanfiction called My Little Dashie. Oh my God, this damn story! Now I have given the story a proper read through, but the way I first experienced the story was by listening to a dramatic reading of it by Mike the Microphone. And if any of you guys are at all familiar with My Little Dashie, then chances are you probably know how that would have turned out. The thing that I find kind of funny is that I know there's a lot of bronies that will be familiar with the My Little Dashie story, so this would make total sense, but most of my subscribers are not bronies, and so they're probably going to be really weirded out because they're seeing me talk about this with absolutely no context. I honestly could spend an entire video just talking about My Little Dashie. It's not perfect, but I do think that it overall was a well-written story. The main reason why is because I did find it very emotionally compelling. So yeah, there's even good fanfiction. I never thought I'd say that. And the last thing that I really have to say that I love about the Brony community is not only because of how talented, creative, and how friendly they are, but there's something about this community I think is really cool. The relationship between the bronies and the creators of the show. Yeah, the creators of the show are well aware of the brony fanbase. And not only do they acknowledge they exist, but they fully embrace it. There's this kind of friendly relationship between the bronies and the creators of the show. A kind of relationship that you don't see with many other TV shows out there. Case in point, Derpy Hooves. Yes, bronies, you will be happy to hear that I do indeed know about Derpy. And any of you non-bronies watching will probably be going, Corey, who the hell is Derpy? I will gladly tell you, my friend. Derpy is a thing that started off as a meme. Remember how earlier in this review I poked fun and made a joke about a grey Pegasus pony that had crossed eyes? I definitely was not the only one who noticed that. Many other people caught on to this little computer error, and so they started posting this image all over on the internet, and they made this cross-eyed character a meme. And fans of the show started to nickname this character Derpy Hooves. And keep in mind that the cross eyes were not intentional. It was a mistake that slipped through the animation. And they decided to pay tribute to the fan base by making Derpy a reoccurring character. Now there are definitely many situations where Derpy's eyes are completely fine, but there's also many occasions when they intentionally keep her eyes cross-eyed. And then the creators took it one step further and actually had one of the characters acknowledge her as Derpy.
Huh? Now, careful, Derpy! I don't want to do any more damage than you've already done.
Needless to say, fans were thrilled. There are other examples about how they had one character that pretty much turned into another meme because he looked a bit like David Tennant, and now this character is essentially a massive tribute to Doctor Who, and his name is actually Doctor Whoves. The fact that the creators of the show are so aware that the bronies are one of the reasons why this show is so successful, and they fully embrace it, is something I think is really cool. And it's something that I don't really see in any other TV shows. So yeah, bronies are awesome! Not only that, but I also genuinely think it actually is a good show. Yes, it definitely does have problems, but so does pretty much everything else. And the things that I liked about the show definitely outnumber the things that I didn't like about it. And I think it's good to the point where, and I'm gonna sound really nuts saying this, but I actually kind of recommend it. My main objective I had with this video is to try and explaining to newcomers why so many people like the show. And as a result, this review has proven to be the most difficult review I've ever had to write. Which is why this video has taken me about 5 months to prepare, including watching the show, doing the research on the brony community, and, well, just writing the script. None of my YouTube videos have ever taken me this long to make. So hopefully by now you have a better understanding of what bronies are like. And finally, I would like to end this video off with a message to any bronies that may be watching this. I don't know how many bronies will be watching this video, but hopefully some. If you are a brony, or not even just a brony, but maybe just somebody who likes the show, but you're embarrassed to admit it, don't be. Because there is nothing wrong with liking this show. There are genuine reasons as to why someone may like the show. So if you like it, keep liking it. Actually, how many of you guys are bronies and proud out there? Let me know in the comments below if you're a brony. I really want to know how many of you guys are actually out there watching this. Whew. And that's about everything. Wow, this video was way too long. But I really had a lot to say, obviously. The script for this video is 40 pages long, and there's actually quite a bit of stuff I've taken out of the script because this video is insanely long. But yeah, I think this is a great show, and I'm actually genuinely excited for the My Little Pony movie coming out this November. And having all that said, this video is way too long, so I'm gonna end this video now. Stay tuned to my next review, whatever it may be, but until then, yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!